You're on, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and start this meeting. The first item on the agenda is discussing the fire department warrant article.
Okay, so the only thing we're gonna discuss on this warrant article is the hourly rate. When we started this process, the chief had done some research, and at that point in time, it was found that we could probably hire help at $22.24 an hour. As time has marched on with the fire department, just like with the police department, wages have gone up in a short period of time. Now it's come to the point where it looks like it's gonna cost us around $25 an hour in order to hire some help. So what the chiefs would like to do, and just speak freely at any point in time, is have a range from 22.24 up to 25.24. And if somebody comes in that we can hire at $22 an hour, then we hire that person. But if somebody comes in with more qualifications that actually warrant the higher rate, that we're gonna end up hijacking from somebody, then the 25.24 an hour would hopefully make that happen. What I provided you is a warrant article, and it figuring in 4 full-time employees at $25.24 an hour. The warrant article would go from $430,000 up to $469,000. So it's a $39,000 increase. That covers overtime, it covers benefits, and it covers the $3 an hour pay increase. You have a breakdown sheet, just like the one you had before, and that shows you how it's all broken out.
Just like the police department in town here recently went through negotiations. Waterville Fire Department's finishing up their negotiations. I think their contract went to council last night. I don't know if that played out from last night. But and one of the things that these, like Waterville specifically, they were running 3 shifts. Under their new agreement, they'll be running 4 shifts, which was going to be one of our advantages to try to hire, because the 4 shifts is a more attractive shift for firefighters and EMTs to have, and they've increased wages along with it. And as Waterville does, other departments have followed. Clinton has increased their wage scale. They've gone from their wage scales between 21 and 25.50 now. Winslow, they negotiated the year before Waterville, but they got $4 to $5 an hour raises, brought their pay up, so they're up in that $22 to $25 an hour range. Skowhegan's doing negotiations currently. Fairfield is in the last year of their contract, so they're going to be doing negotiations. A lot of the Skowhegan is also trying to go to a 4-shift rotation. So that's going to bring their hourly wage up, because what it does is going from a 53-hour work week, the 4-shift rotation brings that down to a 42-hour work week, but they'll keep their annual pay the same, so that brings their hourly wage up. So that's what we're going to be competing against as we go out and look to fill our positions. We're going to be competing against these departments for basically the same pool of candidates. So based on what looked good to us when we started this process 3 or 4 months ago with the committee and everything else, through these contract negotiations and the changes, the COLA numbers that are coming in for different departments, everyone's seeing their wages increase. So we're going to be, before we even started, we were behind, if you will. So as Gary and I kind of discussed it, we thought maybe it'd be prudent to at least explore the idea of increasing that and putting it in front of the council before we just came to a budget meeting and said, oh, by the way. We just thought maybe presenting it out this way would be way to bring that out and allow for some discussion and questions before it hits the budget process. So happy to answer any questions relating to that. That's kind of
Any
where
questions, any thoughts, any comments?
I'll just say, I think it's a good idea to put your best guess in here rather than start out what you know is low, and before you ever get organized, have to tell the public that, oh, we made a mistake on the price, it's going to be more. So I think it's good. put your best guess forward.
It's an evolving process. I mean, it's new to us, it's evolving. It's not just fire departments, every industry out there is evolving like this right now. You know, one of the questions as well, you know, that I've heard kind of through is like, so it's this now, well, what's it gonna be next month? What's it gonna be, you know, where does it end? But, you know, like we just use Waterville as an example because, like I said, they just went to council to have their contract ratified, if you will. That base doesn't change, I believe, for 3 years. I think it's a 3-year contract. So that's going to be set. So now there's increases within that contract based on longevity of time, training level, things like that. But their base is going to be set for 3 years. That's their contract. Like I said, Fairfield's, they're at the end of their contract, the end of June, so they're going to be negotiating, and you know they're going to be looking at what Winslow's done, what Waterville's done, what Oakland potentially would be doing, you know, because they obviously they want to keep their guys too. Everybody wants to retain who they have. Someone,
Could you explain the 4-shift? You said we are at a 4-shift system and the others are, some are changing to it, some are 3 shifts.
yeah, so it's the full-time fire departments basically operate on shift work, if you will. So you'll have, when we say 3 shifts, what you have is you're on duty one day for 24 hours, you're off duty for 48 hours, you're back on duty for 24 hours. So that averages out over the course of, let's just say a year, it averages out to 53 hours a week. So they're paid 53 hours a week, every week, even though some weeks it's more, some weeks it's less. So that rotation of shift work, 24 on, 48 off. And that's what Waterville's done for years. That's what Fairfield operates on, what Winslow operates on. City of Augusta does it a little differently because they have 4 duty shifts. So you're on duty 24, you're off, correct me if I'm wrong, 48.
You're on for 1, off for 2, on for 1, off for 4.
Off for 4. So that 4 shift is a more attractive shift for potential applicants because of one, you're down to now a 42-hour average week versus the 53, and you've got that 4-day period that you're off. You're also got a 2 days off in between your 2 shifts, but that allows them to work a part-time job. It allows them family time. It allows them the other things that they value more easily than the 24/48 schedule. So the idea of hiring 4 here and getting our 24-hour coverage is that we'd have 1 person on duty 24 hours a day on that more favorable schedule, which was one of the things that was going to help us, give us an edge in hiring versus the departments that are doing a 24/48.
So how many firemen will be on duty any given time?
So what I'm proposing is to have at least 1 on duty 24 hours. And then from 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, you would have, including myself, there would be 3 here at the station. You'd have the per diem, you would have the full-time, and you would have myself. So during the day, which is our busiest time, we'd have 3. And then the overnights, you'd have 1 here at the station, and then you'd have another EMT that would be on call, if you will, from home, like we do now. So there would hopefully be 2 that would respond at minimum.
Maybe it's getting off subject, but one of the things that keeps coming to me is, what is our biggest issue with the fire department? What's your biggest problem?
The biggest problem is
We're making this major change.
getting an adequate number of responders to an incident. To the point where there are some calls, and right now it's just EMS calls, but there are some calls that do go unanswered by our department. So, or you have 1 person responding, which, you know, becomes like thing. It's a safety issue to have one person responding.
You know, and this goes right back to the fact that we offer a service, fire department, and that service is breaking. And so this is really the only option that we can come up with to make it happen. Shake your head, no.
I don't think it is the only option.
Where we are right now is, and there's gonna be a crisis. And some people could say that we are in a crisis, but we as emergency responders are trained to deal with crises. So we here, this fire department, we're in a crisis mode that we don't project very well to the public or to our council because we're trained to handle crises. So you have people here that are working, you know, so myself, in some way, attending, responding, or here at the station for over 70% of our calls, working nearly 60 hours a week to make it work.
Weekends and nights.
You have-
days.
You know, we had 11 per diem shifts this month, daytime per diem shifts unfilled. Okay, so that's me. So we have a fire, that's me. So take today, we had a call at the high school. So Ally's on duty with me. I respond to the engine, she responds to the rescue. The next person to arrive on scene is Vaughn, who's 78 years old, driving the ladder truck. There's people out there, you know, people looking at us like,
And I
Vaughn's
guess,
not gonna be doing this forever. Vaughn can come in tomorrow and say, I'm done. You know, so we are approaching crisis, but we don't like people to know we're approaching crisis because that's what we're trained to handle. And I don't want to see us, you know, be in a worse situation and have to make tougher decisions if we could start moving towards alleviating some of that crisis now. Now, is that to say, oh, well, you know, does the chief want to work fewer hours, fewer than 60? Yeah, that would be nice.
So let me just interject. This is a healthy conversation, and I appreciate this. But we've already voted as a council to move this four-person process onto the Budget Advisory Committee and to the town meeting. So technically, the only reason we're here is to talk about wages, whether or not we want to go from 22, 24 to 25, 24. And you know, we can beat this up all day long. I've made it public that I personally don't want to see a full-time fire department because I don't want to deal with another union. But we don't have a choice. We've come to the point where we have to make this thing happen. It's coming, it's here, and I think that we need to move on it. But these guys are in the business. We've got Chief Broder, we've got Chief Coughlin. These guys, they know what's going on, and I have to trust that they're the experts. And this is what they're telling me. And I see it. I see it myself. I mean, I've worked with these guys as a police officer. I've worked with them on calls. I know what the situation is. And unfortunately, it's going to cost us some money. But we have set ourselves up 5 years, 16.4 mils. If we go up half a mil, if it goes up 0.5 of a mil to make this thing happen, that still puts us under 17 mils. We are still the lowest tax town in the entire region. We can't find anybody that's a full service town that has lower taxes than we are. So we've done a good job. This is all ready to go. We just got to pull the trigger and we got to get the support to make it happen.
I do have a question about the money, but before that, we voted to put on an article to bring it to the budget. Doesn't mean that we necessarily all feel that is the way to go.
Right, but we voted as a council
To put it
We can
on.
reopen that discussion. I mean, you could vote to reopen it. We can.
No, it's not the discussion. Well, it is a discussion, because there are a lot of things I'd like to find out. And I understand, we don't want Dave to be working the load he has, but is this the best way to address that particular issue? Or the amount of people that respond at different times? We haven't had that discussion. But going back to the money, we're looking 22 to 25. And I guess my question is more, what do the per diems get?
Currently, 1750.
And they will go up to 20. What is the requirement to be a fireman? What do they have to do? If we hire somebody, what do they, what's their skill? What training do
So
they have to have?
to be a per diem, you have to be an EMT. And you have to be firefighter 1 and 2 trained. So you gotta be able to, you gotta be an EMT and you gotta be a firefighter.
To be a full-time, if we hire, if we have 4 openings and we hire people for that, what's their training level?
It'll be the same.
So basically, a per diem could apply for one of those jobs.
Yes.
So I guess one of the questions they're gonna have is, why aren't we getting paid the same as a full-time person? And
Like,
should we?
One of the questions they have right now is why are they only being paid $17.50? And that's.
I understand.
And that's one of the reasons there's open shifts.
Yeah, that's human nature, and I guess how do we go to 20 when they're the same qualifications and they're already working for us, when we're gonna hire new people to get a sizable amount more? Will some of those people apply for those jobs, you think?
I don't know.
No, that's part of the question, that we're setting these rates at different levels, and
But
should we
they'll
be
also get
thinking
benefits and retirement.
the full-time?
Yes.
But, so we're paying the other guys less, and they're not getting any benefits. We're paying these guys more, and they are getting benefits. I understand there's a difference. One of the problems we have is getting firemen. How are we going to address that? Are we going to, is this going to address that? Is that amount of money going to address the marketability? Are we going to be taking people from other departments? Probably not, because they're all getting the same pay anyway.
But there are other things to factor other than just pay. So.
No, but I guess, are there people out there applying for these jobs?
You know,
Yes.
the chief and I had an interesting conversation and I learned something from it. And basically, how he framed it up to me is you take the older firefighters, they're out there working for cities like Augusta or Waterville or some of these bigger towns, and they're busting their hump a little bit. You know, this is kind of a finishing department, someplace where we get possibly some of the older people who don't want to work twice as hard as what they would with larger departments. They have a little bit slower pace here, and they bring in all the skill sets that we need to have. It's no different than what the Oakland Police Department is. That police department has a lot of the older people in it, always has been, because it's not one of these hard charging police departments like the city of Waterville. It's no different for the fire department. And as far as the discrepancy between part-time and full-time firefighters, that's the way it is everywhere. The police department's been the same way. And when we don't pay our part-time police officers the same money that we pay our full-time police officers, these are more mad money jobs, something to make things happen, a little extra. And that's what we see over here. Does it make sense to pay somebody a full-time wage as a part-timer? I haven't seen it done. I mean, I don't know if it does or not. And if you're insinuating if we pay our part-timers the same money that we're paying possibly a full-timer, will we get more part-timers come in? If that's what you're meaning, I don't know.
No, my question was more, one of the things that David is talking to, and I agree with him, if we've had 11 shifts that have gone without per diems because we can't get them, they're not coming, they're going elsewhere, is that a problem we should be addressing? So I'm looking at what are the issues we have and how are we addressing them with what we're trying to do? And this hasn't really related to the warrant article, but it is related to one of the problems that it seems like we're, facing.
The full-time staff is going to give you people that are dedicated to your department as their primary career job. So
But I think, you're saying you're gonna have staffing and you're including all those per diem people as part of the reason you're gonna have sufficient staffing. Well, if we can't get them, then we're still not gonna have enough staffing. How do we address that part of the equation?
This is how I looked at it when I talked to my council. I'm looking for 16 people. So his 4-person issue is quarter of what I've got to do. My response to them was, how are you gonna find the people? I said, let me take care of that issue. I'll find the people. We have to get creative in how we do that. Our requirements are a little bit higher. As far as Oakland goes, it's if you have a substantial pay, non-transporting ambulance with a lower call volume, you're going to attract people. That's just the way it is. People right now are so burnt out, they're looking for something that they can transfer their retirement to, maintain a pay that's fair, and do less work. Call volume. not work as in like sweeping floors, but call volume. That's the answer.
Someone
And
in
also-
Augusta is doing, if you're working rescue one in Augusta, you're doing 14, 15 plus calls a day in a 24-hour period. Someone that wants to come work here, we're doing 3 calls in a 24-hour period.
And another thing we have to look at too, it's very much like what you and I did toward the end of our careers on police work. You could have come to Oakland and worked full-time how many different times during the course of how many of the years? Same thing with Somerset. I could have gone and worked full-time 1,000 times over. I don't know what my pay was, but I know it was substantially a lot less than what the full-timers were making. And I didn't care. I was still involved in police work, filling that want, but I wasn't gonna leave my driver's ed school, or I wasn't gonna leave the school district. You weren't gonna leave the fire department because it was still filling that itch, I'd say, you know, to work for as a police officer. And so a lot of your part-timers already have other jobs, and it might not match up or marry up with what you got. So it might not, you know what, hey, I'm gonna work some today. For me, I like working 7 days a week, you know, and Dave probably same thing, and Dave probably same thing, but at the same time, I'm not gonna take and leave my full-time job because I don't wanna be hooked up on that schedule of working 24 hours a day and having 2 days off. So, and I think that's a lot, that plays a lot into it. I really do, you know, and I just think some of your people, young lady that was working today, works for Delta, full-time, right?
No, she's
No,
not,
sure, it's the
in general.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying, she's got a
She
full-time
used to work for
job,
Delta, yes.
but she's got a full-time job, she might not wanna leave that.
This is her
She's
day off.
been there long enough.
And she's
You know?
here.
This is her day off from her.
But
from
that's
her-
what
I
you
think
have to
that plays a
remember.
lot into it, and I know what you're saying. No, I have a hard time finding drivers for my driver's ed school, and it's the easiest job, it's a part-time job. You wanna work, go to work, tell me when you're gonna be there, you know? So, and I just think it's the environment where until, my question is gonna go to Chief Groder, who's saying, will 25 fill the position?
For a small town like this, probably.
Okay.
If for the license level that they have to maintain at a basic EMT level versus a paramedic, you're not gonna buy a paramedic for that.
No,
Right, which isn't, we're not,
Right.
that's not what we're.
you're looking for one.
No, we're not licensed to that level.
The town of Oakland's growing. And the needs and the stress on the departments are growing. And we have to keep up with it somehow. And I know this is tough, you know, it's tough for all of us.
And I think I understand what Don is saying too, is that, so you say you need people. Is one gonna make that difference? You know, and that one can make a difference if that's gonna get you, that initial response is gonna get your truck out the door, it's gonna get you 2 people, 3 people on scene faster than you can now. And, you know, with a lot of the restrictions on, especially fire calls, you need a certain number of people there before you can do anything. And that adds to that piece. And our EMS calls, you know, getting that person there that much faster at 2 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock at night when the station isn't staffed. There are times now, you know, if the call is out on the town farm road, say, and we have a responder out there, they don't drive all the way back into town to get the rig. They go direct to the call. There's no guarantee that the truck's ever gonna leave the station. So at that point, they're doing psychological first aid and they're assuring the patient and things like that, but they don't have their tools. They don't have their, you know, their basket of tools to necessarily mitigate the situation. And so, yes, that one person can and will make a difference to the department and the safety of the citizens.
I think this was a worthwhile discussion, even though it isn't exactly why we were here, and I understand what Don is saying, and I don't think this will be the last time we'll have this discussion. I think this
I would agree with
discussion
that.
will take place again when we get to the Budget Advisory Committee, and if it goes through, and I hope it does, goes through to town meeting. I think we are gonna have somebody, all it takes one person to ask questions about why are we doing this? It's crazy to look at all that money. We're gonna have this discussion at least 2 more times, and if this is a, training session to have that, I think that's worthwhile. I sat on the committee
that was made up of, what, 6 or 8 people. Some of them were pretty hardcore against it in the beginning. Don was not, although I think we were there for one of the meetings. But we had 2, 3 meetings, we had a slideshow where we learned all of the problems that Dave was having. And I think he made a good case, and I hope he doesn't have to make that whole case 2 more times, but there will be this discussion a couple more times. And just finally, Dave has got a history in this town. He's got a family history. If he decides that he's got something better he'd like to do, or he doesn't need to work so much anymore, how are you going to find a fireman somewhere who will come in here and work 60, 70 hours a week to do what he's doing? I don't think you do. And I think we're damn lucky to have Dave. And finally, I guess that one of the reasons towns try to do too much and cost too much money. One of the true reasons that towns and cities exist is to provide protection to their citizens, whether it's police protection, fire protection, those 2 things, and keeping the roads open, the 3 basic functions of town government. And once you get beyond that, it's all nice to have a library, nice to have a rec department, nice to have a lot of things. But main function is keeping people safe. And Oakland needs to do that. And I hope that the Budget Advisory Committee, finally the town meeting, and I expect they will, go along with this plan to allow citizens of Oakland to feel safe when there's a fire or a robbery. That's my piece.
A lot of times you look at the fire service, it's just another insurance policy, which ultimately it is. They're not there to do anything unless they're needed. You just mentioned, Bob, about costing too much money. The town manager, the council, we approve things to happen in our community all the time, new buildings, apartment complexes, all that stuff, which stresses or impacts all the services within the community. So every time you add to a fire service or change staffing, it increases the money. There's money coming on the other side of that, which is taxes. Another benefit of that is also our ISO rating. We started chatting about that this morning with the chief, and we're not sure how that would change, but our ISO rating with full-time staff should go down, which is more attractive to businesses to come into our community. And that's our goal, is we want to build business, tax base, and all that other stuff. But that's one of the factors they look at. What's your law enforcement, what's your public safety look like, what your schools look like? And it's all part of it. And it comes right back where you said fire services. You know, it's one of those founding pieces of a community.
So Chief Coughlin, I have an interesting question, just made me think of it. It's nothing to do with money. So we give our blessings. The town gives its blessing. What happens if you only find 2 people that want to work? Just throw it out there. Because it's going to be a challenge. You're going to be handful.
I agree, it's gonna be a challenge. I think we're gonna beat the pavement, and I don't think that we're gonna have just 2.
Okay.
I feel pretty confident that the package that we'll be able to put together with the new proposed pay range, I think the makeup of our department. And I've had people reach out to me already. Is this true? Are you looking to add full-time people? But with that being said, Mike, are we gonna have 4 day 1? Maybe not. Maybe we'll have 2 day 1. Well, then we're gonna have to work out how will 2 benefit us the most until we add that 3rd and that 4th. And I don't think it'll be very long before we do.
Any further questions? Let's make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we present this to the Budget Advisory Committee with the new figure here. I don't. 469,000, 469,000, that we present to the Budget Committee. See where it goes.
Second by Mr. Goder, all in favor. Next one, vote to accept the fire department grant.
I sent an email out to you showing that the chief had won a $3,000 grant to kind of a
County, you know.
yeah, and we just need a motion and a second to go.
I make a motion, we accept the grant.
Second by Mr. Bowman, all in favor. Thank you.
All that.
Do you have anything? I don't. Mr. Nutter?
I don't know, I'm good.
Good, all set.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And, I'm more than willing to talk with anybody that, if you have specific questions or